My wife Lynn and I have been together for 6 years, married for 11 months. Our relationship has always been solid, built on trust, humor, and a sense of shared normalcy. Lynn was the rational one, the no-nonsense type who didn't even like pranks or scary movies. In fact, the one time we tried watching The Shining, she didn't last 30 minutes before begging me to turn it off. That was Lynn, practical, grounded, and thoughtful. So, when the strangeness began, I had no framework to process it. No red flags, no mental health concerns, no family history, just a creeping sense of wrongness that slowly invaded our lives. It started 2 months ago. I was rushing out the door for work, coffee in hand, when I caught something from the corner of my eye. Lynn was peeking at me from around the hallway corner. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, with a single strand of her dark hair spilling over the edge of the wall. "Lynn?" I said, startled. The coffee sloshed over my hand, burning my skin. She ducked out of sight immediately, and I heard her quick footsteps retreating toward the living room. By the time I reached the door, she was gone. I chuckled nervously. It was weird, yes, but also kind of funny. Lynn never acted like that, childish or playful. It was so out of character that I chalked it up to her trying something new, a rare attempt to loosen up. "I love you, weirdo," I shouted, closing the door behind me. Her laugh echoed faintly down the hall. By lunchtime, I had forgotten the incident. When I got home, Lynn was her usual self, calm and unassuming, as though nothing had happened. I didn't bring it up, and neither did she. 3 nights later, I woke up around 2 a.m., thirsty and groggy. The house was silent, the kind of silence that feels unnaturally heavy. As I stood at the kitchen island, chugging orange juice straight from the carton, a sharp, icy sensation prickled at the back of my neck. I was being watched. Slowly, I lowered the carton and glanced down. Lynn's face was staring up at me from the other side of the island. She was crouched low, her eyes wide and unblinking, her mouth stretched into a grin far too wide for comfort. "Jesus Christ!" I screamed, stumbling backward. She didn't move. She just stared at me, that grin frozen on her face. Then, without a word, she scuttled backward on all fours, her hands and feet smacking against the tile like a spider retreating into the shadows. When I finally found the courage to go back upstairs, she was lying in bed, her back to me, her breathing slow and steady. I watched her for what felt like hours, trying to convince myself it was a bad dream. The next morning, I casually brought it up over coffee. "What was that about last night?" I asked, forcing a laugh. Lynn frowned, confused. "What are you talking about?" I explained, pointing to the spot by the island. She stared at me for a long moment before bursting into laughter. "You creep me out sometimes. You know that?" I said, trying to mask my unease. "You creep me out all the time," she teased, her arms slipping around my neck. But it didn't stop. Over the next few weeks, Lynn's peeking escalated. I'd find her peering at me from behind the couch, the curtains, or even from inside her grandmother's old trunk at the foot of our bed. One night, as I sat watching TV, I joked about it. "You've been quiet lately. Gave up your spy game?" She glanced at me with a small, cryptic smile. "Maybe I've just gotten better at it." Her words lingered long after she'd fallen asleep. Was she watching me when I wasn't looking? The thought turned my home into a maze of paranoia. I found myself checking behind furniture, under tables and around corners, waiting for those wide eyes and that awful grin to appear. The final straw came a few nights ago. Lynn had gone to visit a friend, leaving me alone for the evening. I decided to take a quick shower before bed. The steam clouded the bathroom, and I let the hot water wash away my tension. Then that familiar sensation returned. I opened my eyes to find Lynn's face stretched through the shower curtain, her hair damp and dripping against the plastic. Her eyes were impossibly wide, her grin unnaturally large, revealing too many teeth. "Lynn!" I shouted, slamming against the tiles. She didn't flinch. Her makeup streaked down her face in jagged lines, and her mouth hung open in a grotesque expression of glee. Slowly, she pulled her head back through the curtain, her movements jerky and unnatural. The bathroom door slammed shut a moment later, rattling the mirror. I stayed locked in the bathroom for over an hour, too terrified to open the door. When I finally worked up the courage, she was nowhere to be found. The next morning, I brought my brother Chris back to the house, hoping for support. As we stepped inside, the stench of rot overwhelmed us, heavy and clinging. I gagged immediately, the sour smell clawing at my throat. Desperate for relief, I yanked my shirt off and pressed it over my nose and mouth, trying to block out the putrid air. "God, Ben," Chris muttered, waving a hand in front of his face. "What the hell died in here?" The source of the stench led us to the bedroom closet. Inside, we found rows of small animal eyes meticulously arranged in pairs. They glistened wetly in the dim light, the carpet beneath them stained dark. "Ben," Chris said, his voice barely a whisper, "your wife isn't just sick. She's exorcist sick." But the real horror wasn't in the closet. As we turned to leave, my bare skin prickled, a wave of dread crawling up my spine. That's when I saw her. Under the bed, Lynn lay curled on her side, trembling with uncontainable excitement. Her wide eyes gleamed with manic glee, her bloody hands clasped together beneath her chin like a child waiting for a gift. A faint, raspy moan escaped her lips, rising and falling in uneven bursts, like a grotesque lullaby meant only for me. I froze, the shirt still clutched against my face, my breath catching in my throat. Her gaze locked onto mine, and her mouth stretched into an impossibly wide grin. My hand trembled as I slowly lowered the shirt, my chest heaving with the effort to stay calm. "Lynn," I whispered, stepping toward her. Her grin widened, and before I could react, she lunged. A shard of glass glinted in her hand as she slashed at me, catching my arm. I stumbled back, blood dripping onto the floor. Chris and I bolted, her laughter chasing us down the stairs. As we reached the front door, she pounced on me, her breath hot against my neck, her hiccuping giggles filling my ears. I threw her off and slammed the door behind me. That was 2 days ago. I've been staying in a motel ever since, jumping at every sound, every shadow. I thought I was safe until my phone buzzed an hour ago. The message was from an unknown number. "I found you." Attached was a picture. Dark, blurry, but unmistakable. It was Lynn's eye, staring straight at me. I don't know what to do. I'm terrified, and I can't shake the feeling that I'm being watched. And so, another tale from the Reddit abyss draws to a close. But remember,
the shadows never truly fade. They're simply waiting for the next story.
Subscribe now and join us in the darkness.
Because you never know. The next tale could be yours.